Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Friends, I'm excited to learn from you. So why don't we start with a brief introduction and tell us something you believe about entrepreneurial view of Web3 that's not popular. Let's start with you.
That's a lot of pressure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kevin, co-founder of Bored and Hungry, co-founder of Food Fighters Universe. What's a not popular idea, you said? Or not popular? Okay. About entrepreneurship in Web3. Well, it's a lot slower than people think. And I know when you see people like some of us that have some success in the new innovative space, it's just like any other business. It takes time.
Chris, teach us something.
Pass. No, I'm just kidding. I think I would build on that. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I like to say it's a marathon run in daily sprints. And I think understanding where we are in time is helpful because there's opportunities throughout the life cycle of adoption. And you're seeing early examples with what you guys have done and some of the other things. And again, to your point, it's like, wow, I want to be like that. But you can only be like that at a certain point in time. So as an entrepreneur, you have to learn how to see patterns and you have to understand where we are in the adoption of a technology so that I could be aspired or inspired by what you've done, and at the same time I can do my thing in the time that I'm given to capitalize on the opportunity that exists now. So that's, I don't know if that's unpopular, but that's what I would say.
Tara.
Okay, my name is Tara, the co-founder of Hyped Collective and also the part of the organizer of the Philippines Blockchain Week. So maybe you guys have seen me at least once, if you guys spend like 2 days, here, because I was here and there always in the conference room. So thanks for coming, and then also for me, from the marketer and then brand strategy perspective, the most unpopular point of Web3 is usability. Because actually, Web3 is, so many people, maybe you've heard them before that Web3 is a future. But what is the future, right? The concept is so vague, and then we have to be closer to the end users and then find something they really need, something feasible. They want to see something, now. And then that's the point, like we want to let you guys know like where you are right now and then what's happening in Web3, and then we have to connect the dots, and then dots are somehow looking up be pretty far. So yeah, that's the usability part, and then that's the thing actually we have to focus on right now.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul. I own an NFT collection. I'm also a Web2 entrepreneur, and I've just started doing a lot of consulting for Web3 based companies as well. I'd say the most unpopular is, I guess, a little bit of a remix of what you guys have already said. The same rules of running a successful business still apply, and it's still an overnight success that takes 10 years and 20 years. And so, but the thing is, Web3 is inevitable, so you should probably, they say that the quote is, the best time to start was like years ago, but the second best time is to do it now. So yeah, the same business philosophy still apply.
Jay.
Hi, I'm Jay, Jay Ha, co-founder of IP3, also one of the organizers of Philippine Blockchain Week. One thing I learned by coming over here a few times a year is that there are actually a lot of Philippine entrepreneurs jumping into Web3, a lot more than we think and we have known. There are also a lot of other entrepreneurs around the world, including developed and developing countries. They're actually bullish about Web3, whether it's a large corporation, medium-sized company, to individual investors to entrepreneurs. But looks like when we look at the hype of the bubble, it's actually happening in a lot of the most popular cities in the world. That's happening, lots of activities and stuff. But I see that more and more those hidden gems like Manila will be discovered by a lot of investors and entrepreneurs outside.
Not all of you may realize this, but any of the five of you could be keynote speakers at any Web3 event. It is unusual to have a panel with such a depth of knowledge. So I'm gonna ask some very specific questions from each of you. Jay, I'm gonna start with you. What do you look for in a Web3 investment? Are you looking for an entrepreneur, a team, a product, a vision? Help us understand what rings the bell and what gets your attention, gets that first meeting, leads toward a term sheet. Help us understand what you look for as an investor.
So that's a very good question. So I'm giving a little bit of brief introduction about myself. So I've been an investor the last 14 years on Web2. I have a venture capital in Singapore. We've invested a lot of deep tech companies, including prop tech, SaaS, e-commerce, advertising, ad tech, so on. I've also done a lot of impact investments based on New York's private equity called Unreasonable PE the last 3-4 years. But all these Web2 learnings that I've got, you know, and look at what's going on in Web3, there are things that I can actually mobilize the learnings I've had in the previous investments into Web3. But there are also a lot of differences that I've never knew, like until I jumped in and start investing to a few companies at least. And what I have learned so far on Web3 investment and entrepreneurship, I'm seeing that more and more customer-centric and Web2 and Web3 embedded companies are popping up. And due all respect, like that's one of the reasons I find a project like Born and Hungry very, very interesting, because this is a food concept that came out from Web2, but it is highly embedded with the branding and marketing and Web3, NFT, all this new technology. So I think throughout the next 3 to 4 years, there's going to be a lot of conversions and amalgamation of these industries together. So there will be thinner and thinner lines of, you know, Web2 and Web3 as it goes along, just like any other technology development.
So Paul, you've invested in many NFTs. What is it that gets your attention with a new NFT project? Or maybe you'd want to talk about an existing NFT project. What would it take for a project to revive itself that causes you to say, whoa, oh, didn't think about this community before, didn't think about this DAO before, didn't think about being a collector of this art or whatever utility it comes with. I think that would be a really valuable thing for us to learn from you.
How much time you got?
About 45 seconds.
Well, there's like a huge checklist that trading for the past 12 months has pretty much formed, and my community has actually helped contribute to the checklist of things that we look for. And thankfully, it's been helping us be really profitable and at the same time steer clear of so many scams. Like our Discord is filled with, oh my gosh, we dodged bullets. A lot of it really has to do, and it actually goes back to when I said the same business principles apply in Web 2 as Web 3. It's all about the team. The team has to be doxed, for me at least. The team has to have some kind of, has to be in the Discord or in the community or whatever they communicate with and communicate regularly. There's just no excuse. And there's also, doesn't necessarily need to be a roadmap, because there's countless Web 2 companies that have pivoted nonstop and become the companies we love today. They didn't start out that way. So it's not necessarily a requirement, but yeah, an incredible leadership and being able to adapt to changes, doesn't have a massive ego, and they're able to show that, like, well, we get it. And because I dance between Web 2 and Web 3, the best way to onboard somebody is to have a mix of new and old. You can't be overly technical, and we just laughed about like how people were talking about nodes and the 32 blocks that are needed to verify. Like none of that needs to apply. Like you need to be able to relate to a customer with Web 2 lingo in order to have any chance at, merging them over Web3. So anyway, there's a lot more, but at least I'll start with that.
Tara, if a project wanted to reach out to you to do marketing for them, and they say, can you not hear me? Okay. What would attract you to do marketing for a Web3 project? Because you've done marketing, that's been your basis. So I'd like to know, like, what type of, can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. That's the question.
Actually, I need to clarify a little bit because I don't do the marketing, for the Web3 project. I help Web2 brands, to be connected to the Web3 scene. So I've been doing traditional marketing, like, as you know, like the IMC, integrated marketing communication for all the brands you can imagine in the luxury and retail and automotive. So those are like the common marketing things, like you can come across maybe on the road, like out of home, or maybe TV or whatever, social media from the search engine, and then everything you can come across in everyday life, like which can be called like a media. So, and then what I'm doing is like, please let the consumer understand, what the difference, happening between Web2 and Web3, and then connect that, like with the brand side. So what I always explain is like there's gonna be decentralization in terms of data, and then that's what both brand and consumer should understand, like as a big core essence and change happening in Web3. So I try to actually talk about the data, like maybe food ingredients. It might be aligned with like what Kevin does, because food is like what everybody's interest. Like who doesn't like eating, right? So data ownership is gonna be from maybe the media partners, the media entities such as Google or Alibaba, or there are a lot of big companies, like who own data. And then those are gonna be the creators or the consumers, and then we're gonna get that. So let's say we are gonna cook. Then ingredients were actually not really accessible for everybody in Web 2. But in Web 3, now we can finally know, where the ingredients from, where we should get, and then now is the time for you guys make your own recipe. So, and then I'm gonna help that, all the creators and consumers and brands, and then to connect to each other to make the best synergy. So I just wanna listen to more people, to get like a better idea. Then that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Chris, you and your partner, Travis Wright, are two of the most influential people in Web3 in terms of many areas. I think we all see how brilliant you are in terms of what you've shared already here, but also just your influence in the market. What attracts you to, bring somebody on your platform, to talk about a project, to talk about a team? What is it that causes you to lean into something and want to basically tell the world about it?
That's a good question. I think so. I'm generally attracted to. I'm curious by nature, so I'm generally attracted to things I don't understand, and want to, because I just have this weird insatiable thirst. So a lot of times when we bring guests on or when we get involved in stuff, it's more organic than it might seem, because it's really based on the person, the idea, the timing, what they're doing. But I think if I was to genericize it and say, what do we look for? I look for things that are real. Like, I have zero interest in pumping bags for a bunch of BS. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just not interesting. I think we have 10 years left to put as much impact on the infrastructure that's gonna run the next 100, but we're dealing with forces that we haven't ever had to deal with. I mean, if you go back 100 years, there was 1.7 billion people on the planet. That's what lives in China today, right? So like, we've gone 8 billion strong on the humanities side. 67% live in cities. 100 years ago, 5% lived in cities. So these dynamics are, and now when you factor in AI, which is going to basically be like electricity, you're not going to have a house without running water or electricity. You're not going to have a business or an app or a project without AI. So when we think about these things, we think linear, but the reality is the change is so exponential that, not to sound overly dramatic, but I fundamentally am attracted to people who are trying to make it better, because there is a time clock in my head that's tipping. I don't have delusions of grandeur. I don't think I'm anybody special, but I do know I can't go to my deathbed not doing as much as I could to make it better for the mass of humanity, because I know that there's an opportunity. So typically that's how we find people, is people that are real, that are trying to solve a real problem. It could be small, could be big, it doesn't really matter. Are they trying to serve a customer? Are they clear on why they want to serve that customer? And have they built something? Because a lot of people talk and write white papers, but building matters.
I have like 25 questions I want to ask you, Kevin. How do I choose just one? Are there any Web 2 companies in the food space that you would love to bring in and collaborate with? And why would you choose that specific brand to collaborate with in the future?
There's so much I can't say right now because my partners are right there, because I'm the guy that spills the beans on a lot of future projects that we're already working on. But I'm going to talk about Web 2 brands that I guess we're thinking about, but that we're not even talking to, I guess. And because honestly, for us, we want to do everything. Because naturally, you know, as Andy mentioned, you know, even in his past, we love mashing cultures together. It like really excites us. We just want to see what comes out and what happens when you put different people in a room. Like, we love that. So there's a lot of brands, but sticking to the world of food, we want to definitely. There's a few brands that I got to meet recently. I was speaking at a MurTech executive summit where it's more about food technology, and so it was really cool to meet brands that are on like the cutting edge of like what's coming next. And I'm very interested in working with some of those folks. Like a brand that maybe on a global scale you guys have heard of is like a Taco Bell. I mean, that's, you know, everybody knows and loves Taco Bell. They run their company like a tech company. Like, it's amazing. They're like in Orange County, California. They're doing some crazy stuff. And I'm very interested in what they're going to do. And I know they have some strategies, but I think we could make it a little bit cooler. Like, things like that. Like, of course, those companies are tip of the tongue. But other than that, like completely non-food brands, like we're very interested in, we have a lot of nostalgia. So we love like 90s cartoons and different, different IPs from games and things like that. So, you know, we would love to do something with something in Nintendo, like maybe Mario. Like, we would love to do something there where they allow us not just on the food immersion, but maybe something in Web3.
That's awesome. So Jay, you've invested in a lot of Web 2 entrepreneurs. How are you helping those that have an ear to hear, those that are leaning and asking for your advice and your insight? How are you helping them get ready to scale for this Web3 innovation that's coming?
So at early stage, I try to connect the dots by introducing a lot of people to a lot of people. But the more the company gets matured, I try to not involve as much as I can, because over time, all the entrepreneurs learn, whether good way or bad way. And as a financial investor, I try to get out of their way, because they know what they're doing. They're always doing better things than what I even imagined. But at early stage, when I'm needed, I try to advise and connect as much people as possible.
So Paul, how can businesses prepare for this massive change in infrastructure for Web3?
I think it's one thing is to remove the ego and to know that you don't know it all. Second thing is to seek help from people who are doing amazing things, and there's no shortage of good intel out there, whether it be through Twitter or a lot of most of NFT and blockchain news comes from Twitter, and there's incredible thought leaders that they should just pay attention to, and even if they don't agree with it, they should just have conversations with them. and also know that what you think is your most valuable resource, assume that it's been decentralized and assume that it's gone. In that case, what can you do? I'm in the restaurant business along with Kevin and Andy and all them, and one of the biggest disruptions has been third-party delivery, right? So all my restaurants, customers don't even come into our stores anymore. What that means that a bunch of legs are missing from the stool, so you need to over-index on delivery. You need to make sure the delivery is perfect, make sure they're treated well, make sure there's like a nice little note that says thank you so much for your business. There also needs to be other ways to engage. Just same thing as Web3 companies. Like everything's been decentralized. How do you they only have a digital experience now. So how do you over-index on digital to make them feel like they're not missing out by not going into a store and going the extra mile for competitors? And so that's one thought I had.
Well, I got the sign that we're supposed to end the panel, but I'm going to ask a couple quick questions as we end and just ask for quick answers. When it comes to, and Tara, this will be for you, when it comes to people taking on this Web3 challenge, what is the advantage of them being an early adopter?
Advantage of the early adopter? Yeah, maybe. I think it's gonna be boosting, you know, like maybe in 2-3 years. But now it's really critical time for everybody, you know, who can be the target, who can be our like core customers. So once we actually figure out like those parts, you know, to engage, and then they can learn actually like how to actually enrich their business, and then how to flourish their business and everything with the right people, like at the end of the days. Because it's vague, and then there's no like the border, so we never know, you know, like what the right answer is. And then that's why, like I mentioned about the connecting that kind of stuff, we can be way more creative, you know, to utilize all the opportunities happening in Web3, and then there can be really good chance for ourselves, you know, to reflect, and then because, you know, the first thing we have to do is we have to know where we are right now. And then the early adapters, you know, like you guys have like a longer time than any other people to reflect yourselves, and then to see like maybe what kind of people are like around you, and then how to utilize or like maybe optimize the resources around you. So we have longer time than other people like who are gonna jump in Web3 in the end.
Thank you. Chris and Kevin, please answer the same question as we wrap up. And that is, what are major pitfalls that businesses will face as they transition into Web3 that they may not be aware of, unless you tell them?
You know, the biggest pitfalls I've seen, we've worked with some big brands on some drops, and they were really innovative, but then they didn't kind of go as well. And I think it's just, you know, thinking that you can communicate to people the exact same way, right? And the same thing happened before in 09, 010, 11, the early days of, you know, Web 2 and social. Brands just put the same crap out on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. Like they got lazy, right? And the same things happen in Web 3. You're seeing a lot of that. And so until we get to native content and native communication that's relevant to the customer that we care about, we're going to struggle. So that's, you know, that's what I've seen it happen. It happened before. It happens every time there's a new thing. We kind of try and make it incremental from the old thing, but it's a new thing. So we got to do the work. Early adopters get to fail more. That's what I like to say.
All right, Kevin, land the plane, and this needs to be as good as a Michelin star meal. So, I mean, give something great to us right here.
I'm just seeing the pressure of eyes to end the session. So I'm just going to be very quick on saying, please, 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 focus on the community that you're building. Be mindful to them. Give more than you take. There it is.
Let's give our panel a hand, everybody. Thank you for your attention.
Philippine Blockchain Week. See you next year.